Hello. Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Welcome back again. Thank you for joining me. January 3rd, 2022. So we are in a new year. I hope you enjoyed the new year fireworks safely. So I have some news to share with you. First, the civil war still continue in Ethiopia, northern part of the country between TDF and all the forces belongs to Prosperity Party, Fano, Amara Militia, the Federal Force, the Eritrean. So the NMSG, the engagement still there, despite the international effort to cease fire and the dialogue. So the Ethiopian government has a mixed message. One, they say they stop going into Tigray officially, the federal government, but in reality, there is still fighting going on. Or there is an attempt to go into Tigray. So uh, the other thing is also heavy fighting reported in western Hararge zone in Oromia, and the Prosperity Party suffered heavy casualty. OLA scored major military victory. So the Ethiopian government is now using drones and using air bombardment of civilian infrastructure, civilian targets. So even OLA, Oromo Liberation Army, released a press statement on this issue. So just killing civilians when it got defeated in armed conflict on the ground. Now they are bombarding civilian homes and the civilians. So this has happened in Tigray. Now it's also happening in Oromia region. It has been happening in Wallagga, eastern and the western Wallagga. So now it's expanding to eastern and the western Hararge region. The other thing is OPDO, or the Oromo Prosperity Party, is having a closed session or a closed meeting. We don't know what they were, they having closed meeting. Probably we can guess they might be talking about Karayu killing and the Angasa Ibrahim exposing the police commissioner, Oromia police commissioner. So they might be talking about that and how they can settle their own issue. Nothing about the country, nothing about the Oromo's prosperity, nothing about a consultation or bringing peace in that country. This is how they can control internal fighting. So they are having closed meeting, and we don't know the agenda, but we just guess maybe they just try to control themselves, and instead of exposing each other, they might be talking about that. We're gonna find out if they release any press statement. So the WOBO or OLA celebrated its foundation day. OLA celebrates its Freedom Day every day, with a new commitment to do more, with a commitment to liberate Oromia from all atrocities and grave human rights violations. So they celebrated with remembering the fallen heroes and to do more to do more in their fight against tyranny and all atrocities, all brutalities in Oromia. So they celebrated their day with, graduating new recruits and, with a strong commitment and also with a strong message for all Oromos and the friends of Oromo to do more for this freedom movement. So they are celebrating the OLA, Oromo Liberation Front Day. So they are in a celebration and ceremony. So then after I said this, we're gonna continue to other news. First, I will start with a video. I'm just wondering if Ethiopia is going back to the Derge regime. I just, let's see, hold on. So I will show you two videos. One is the welcoming march, for the diaspora community. As you know, the diaspora community uh, uh, going back, they are already there actually, doing all the celebration, all the propaganda work for Abiy Ahmed and for saving Ethiopia, blah, blah. They are there. So I just wondering the marching band song they are singing now. And I have this one and the Derg regime. So I don't know if Ethiopia is going back to the Derg regime under Abiy Ahmed administration, or is it done in purpose, or is it done without paying attention? I don't know. This song was sung during Derg regime. You will see. So I just want you to listen this, the marching band song, and I will give you the other one. I will share the other one too, the Derg regime time. Let's listen. በድጋሚ ክቡራትና ክቡራን የዲያስፖራ አባል እንግዶቻችን እና ሌሎች ተጋባዦች እንግዶቻችንን ሰላምታ በመስጠት እንድትቀበሏቸው በአክብሮት እንጠይቃለን። ወደሚቀጥለው ድንኳን በመሄድ ጉብኝት ካደረጉ በኋላ ተመልሰው እዚህ ይመጡ ይሆናል። አሁን በቅድሚያ ወደ ጉብኝት ነው የሚሄዱት። ሰላምታ ያቀረቡላችሁ ወደ ጉብኝት የሚሄዱ ይሆናል። ከጉብኝቱ በኋላ ተመልሰው ወደዚህ በመምጣት ፕሮግራማችንን የምንቀጥል ይሆናል። በቅድሚያ ግን ሃሁ ኢትዮጵያ ትቅደም። ተስፋ ለብዙ ዓመታት Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as you can witness, our guest of honor, Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Demeke Mekonnen, the Mayor of Addis Ababa, Her Excellency Adaanech Abeebe, and other dignitaries have just arrived. ተራመድ ይህን አበርታ ብልጽግና ወገን መከታ ክንድህን አበርታ. This is the one I was just wondering. This song. ሃሁ ኢትዮጵያ ትቅደም። Okay, so this is okay. Let me show you. I'm just wondering if Ethiopia is going back to the Derge regime. Uh, so let's see. Okay, there we go. Hold on. It's exactly this. That one is instrumental marching band. This is the actual Derg regime. ተራመድ ክንድህን አበርታ አገር ብልጽግና ለወገን መከታ አሁን ኢትዮጵያ ትቅደም አሁን ኢትዮጵያ ትቅደም መሻሻል ስራ እንጂ አይወድም ስንፍና ለእናት ሀገራችን አይበጃትምና ተነሳ ተራመድ ክንድህን አበርታ ለአገር ብልጽግና ለወገን መከታ ወንዞች ገደቡ ይዋሉ ለልማት በከንቱ ፈሰዋል ለብዙ ሺህ ዓመታት ይውጡ ማዕድናት ለሀገራችን ጥቅም ሕዝቧን ታጥቆ ይስራ በተቻለ አቅም ተነሳ ተራመድ ክንድህን አበርታ ለሀገር ብልጽግና ለወገን መከታ አሁን ኢትዮጵያ ትቅደም There we go. So I'm just wondering when I was listening to this on the Ethiopian media right now, it's the same song, you know, in recorded during Derg regime, and we are singing this song at this time. I don't know if I heard it during TPLF time or TPLF dominated Ethiopia. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm just wondering the marching band singing this song. Are we going back to the revolutionary time, the Derg regime time? I'm just wondering. That's my, observation. I know Abiy Ahmed invited all the former officials to join him, like Kasai Chamada, Brigadier General Kasai Chamada, who is advocating to take, heavy measurement, even advising him to shoot on the head any opposition, to crush any opposition. So Kasai Chamada and Dr. Kasa Kabada, all that and other Derg officials are invited. So I don't know if we are going back that regime or is it just is a mistake? We don't know. So I'm just wondering, and you do your thing. We will follow it. If we are going back, we don't know. So thank you again, and I will read some other news and share some videos, also some other videos at the end of the presentation. Here we go. Ethiopia Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed ordered his undercover operatives to break forcibly in the middle of darkness into the families of Oromo political prisoner and Oromo Federalist Central Committee member Mr. Johar Muhammad, and arrested his two sisters, Rabia Siraj Muhammad and Misha Siraj Muhammad, and also arrested his doctor, Dr. Ilili Jamal. So Mr. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed also ordered this operation also on. Okay, I mean the other names are also appear in this arrest operation. Mr. Abraha, Mr. Bakara Garba's driver, and two others were also taken into prison in this illegal and terrorizing operations. So far, no reason is given for this undercover operation from Abiy Ahmed's office. A similar terrorizing operation and house search was conducted by Abiy Ahmed's operatives at Johar Muhammad's mother's house in the past. The Prime Minister is using the current emergency declaration law to commit terror, fear, and illegal acts against peaceful civilians in Ethiopia. The international community must pay serious attention to these human rights violations conducted by Ethiopian authorities and condemn it with the strongest possible terms for the sake of international law and humanity. So, credit for this Oromo Media Network. So, we don't know why Abiy Ahmed want to arrest this family member, Jawar Muhammad family member, or the two sisters, and Bakala Garba, another Oromo politician, his driver, and some others who are in that house. We don't know what is the reason. Being a family member of a politician is not a crime, but these people, Abiy Ahmed, under Abiy Ahmed, there is no off limit. There is no accountability. They can arrest anyone. They can kill anyone. They can torture anyone. They can burn anybody's house without accountability. Nobody asked them. Everything is in their hand at this time. So they do whatever they want to do. So today, they have taken the two sisters of Johar Muhammad, Bakala Garba's driver, and other individuals into custody in this terrorizing operation conducted in the middle of the night, in darkness. Ethiopia's war turns into a testing ground for the deadliest drones. This is the Times reported on this. Ethiopia's civil war has become a testing ground for military drones that has made its people guinea pigs, rebel leaders have claimed. Multiple purchases of armored surveillance drones at a fraction of the cost of fighter jets and bombers have provided Ethiopia leader Abiy Ahmed with a war-winning weapon that has forced the Tigrayan People Liberation Front (TPLF) into retreat. So now Abiy Ahmed is using drones, bombardment, and turning civilians as a guinea pig, as a testing ground. So for full report, you can check the Times The Times has a full report. So it even got a picture of so many vehicles burned by the drones. And these are the properties of Ethiopians. You know, we cannot afford to lose all these properties, really. Ethiopian Foreign Ministry released, the statement by Deputy Prime Minister Demeke Mekonnen on the current situation of Ethiopia, all about the formation of the new consultation commission, about the war, and about the cost of war on civilians, infrastructure. Also, the Deputy Prime Minister also used this opportunity to blame the Western, to belittle them, to trash them. So I'll read a little bit part of that. In a recent message, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister Demeke Mekonnen said that Ethiopia, as a nation with long history and a member of the global community, is in a better position to overcome attempts by both internal and external distractors trying to undermine its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Okay, from our history and the current situation, we Ethiopians fully understand that there is no alternative to peace and stability. Wars and armed conflicts have never resolved problems. They only exacerbate perceived or real intention, destroy infrastructure and livelihood, as well as suck meager human and financial resources. Conflicts are also known for causing loss of productivity, disruption of trade, education, and health priorities, etc. Apart from such direct costs, there are indirect costs of conflict. These include population displacement and refugees, mismanagement of scarce resources, reduced production and productivity, lower investment, reduction in education opportunities, brain drain, reduced tourism, job losses, inflation, overall microeconomic instabilities, welfare losses, and capital flights. Ethiopia is not exception to this adverse consequence of wars or armed conflict. However, whatever the cost may be, Ethiopians rightly choose the preservation of their country and in unison said no to the conspiracy which aims at fracturing and or erasing the country from the global map of nations. The highest stake is the preservation of Ethiopia as a vibrant and stable nation in the Horn of Africa. In a sense, the war of survival and the restoration of order in northern Ethiopia has galvanized the unity of the country more today than ever before. We want our partner, particularly from the West, to understand what is at stake here, he said, Mr. Demeke Mekonnen. They need to, this is a warning for the Western country, they need to refrain from chipping away at our long-standing relationship with sanctions and unnecessary pressure on the Ethiopian government. We need them to open their eyes and understand that the TPLF is left with a bankrupt ideology and is losing militarily and politically. So they are insulting. The Western are not opening. They are not seeing. That's what they say. We hope the world will one day see the full extent of the unspeakable atrocities and the damage to infrastructure perpetrated by the TPLF. Ethiopians are done with the TPLF, and many diplomatic wrangling would have been avoided. The international community and has chosen to understand this. Okay, the only option left is to strengthen effort as a forging ties with a democratically elected government of Ethiopia, a path that is mutually beneficial. Is not democratically elected. Abiy Ahmed arrested all the challengers and created the atmosphere to easily to get the vote. So he's not elected uh, in a democratic and a fair and a free election. That's not true. But the Ethiopian government keep claiming. Currently, the government of Ethiopia has decided not to continue pursuing active military enforcement against the TPLF in the Tigray regional state. This is also false. Officially, yes. Many have welcomed the decision as it opens a window of opportunity to consider other options of resolution that exist without recourse to war. The ball is fully now in the courts of the TPLF. In this regard, those who advance ill-intended interest should resort to playing a positive role in order not to spoil this opportunity. It is equally important for our development partners such as the United States and the European Union to play a constructive role in their relationship with Ethiopia. That's also an advice and a warning for US and the European countries. You know, we regret certain hastily decision of the US administration in penalizing Ethiopia for not bowing down to pressure. Nobody asked Ethiopia to bow down. The United States never asked to bow down. The United States asked you to have open discussion, dialogue, reconciliation with all stakeholders. So they are lying. They are just. The US administration and the legislative bodies should realize the colossal socio-economic damage that their various sanctions and other measures can cause on vulnerable nations, citizens, and economies, including Ethiopia. Available evidence and analysis show that the US sanctions disproportionately hurt the poor and the needy by undermining efforts of the government and domestic institutions to provide health, education, and other vital services to the most vulnerable sections of the society. If you are interested, Ethiopia, if you are interested to do all these services, you should follow the guidelines provided for the AGWA benefit. You have to respect human rights. You are, repeating this human rights violation. Even yesterday, arresting the family of politicians in the middle of the night, terrorizing. How you expect to get this benefit by, doing this dirty work? So Ethiopia also strongly and unequivocally urged the United Nations to reinvent itself. Oh man. With regard to its stance on the current Ethiopian conflict to continue to be a viable, balanced, and credible global institution. That's an insult for this institution anyway. To reinvent itself to reliable and credible. What? Oh man. It should refrain from treating factions and rebels on an equal footing with the elected legitimate government, which are members of this august entity. The United Nations Security Council held unnecessary and more frequent meetings on Ethiopia in 1 year than any other member state in the past. because the war was going on. That's why the reason. The United Nations concerned about civilian deaths, the destruction of the country. So that's why they are having many meetings. That's the reason, because he refused to stop the war. Moreover, the United Nations Human Rights Council's resolution on the establishment of independent commission of investigation on human rights violation in Ethiopia shows utter bias, power play, and fractured global governance that requires urgent fixing. Again, that's another insult for UN Human Rights uh, Commission decision. So doesn't need any fixing. You need to fix yourself to adhere to the international standard, international human rights rules. The United Nations should not and cannot advance global peace, stability, if it continues to be serving the hegemonic political and economic agendas of a few powerful nations. Okay, I know you are going to uh, attack the United States and some European countries. This will not help Ethiopia to get out of trouble. So that's a prosperity tactic, insulting, degrading US, European Union, and the other UN United Nations members for speaking up against the war. Although democracy, rule of law, and human rights are vital for every nation, they should be framed to fit each country's cultural, institutional, political, and overall local conditions. The UN in particular should stand for consistent, clear norms and yardsticks when it is invoking human rights in international relations. The way forward to protect and promote global peace and security, as well as human rights, is through dialogue, which is based on the United Nations Charter, international laws, and mutual respect. Yeah, these are all nice words, but you are not doing your part. Ethiopia will continue with her primary responsibility to create conditions and policies for an inclusive and sustained economic growth and development. The way forward in addressing global challenges and risks is through partnership, constructive dialogue, and mutual respect. All these are the glory words, but uh, in actual or practical terms, they are useless terms. They are useless terms when it comes to Ethiopia, when it comes to the prosperity officials. They are doing whatever they want to do and blaming the international community. They are following Isaias Afwerki advice, try to make the country a one-party system and eliminate all oppositions, especially those who are challenging in the Tigray region and those who are challenging in Oromia region. These are the biggest one. If they win this, they will be in power forever without any question, without any accountability. That's what they try to do. They tried with the military, they failed, they destroyed the country. They have intention again not to listen to the international community, and they want to continue the war. They want to use the drones. They want to use Ethiopia's limited resource on the war and continue the bloodshed. Okay. US calls for civilian rule in Sudan after Hamdok quits as a prime minister. Okay, that's a challenge. Sudan, the prime minister resigned. The United States has urged Sudanese leaders to ensure civilian rule and end violence against protesters after Abdullah Hamdok resigned as a prime minister, throwing a transition toward election deeper into uncertainty. After Prime Minister Hamdok resignation, Sudanese leaders should set aside differences, find consensus, and ensure continued civilian rule, the U.S. State Department Bureau of African Affairs said in a tweet. Hamdok, an economist and a former United Nations official widely respected by the international community, had served as a prime minister under a military-civilian power-sharing deal that followed the overthrow of former leader Omar al-Bashir in 2019. The military dissolved his government in a coup in October, but he returned a month later under a deal that tasked him with forming a government of technocrats ahead of election in 2023. Hamdok announced on Sunday that he was resigning after being unable to forge a consensus to bring the transition forward. He called for dialogue to reach a new agreement for the transition. Reaction on social media in Sudan was divided, with some saddened by the loss of a leader who they said stood out for his wisdom. Others, still angry with Hamdok for returning after the coup, expressed their resolve to end military rules. Uh, Jibril Ibrahim, a former rebel leader who served as finance minister under Hamdok but expressed support for the military before the coup, called his resignation regrettable. Our nation needs political compromise today more than ever to navigate safely through these turbulent times. There is room to accommodate everyone. So that is the challenge of Sudan transitional government. Credit for this one is Middle East Monitor. So Abdullah Hamdok tried, it didn't work, he resigned. So Abiy Ahmed, please learn from these individuals. You know, not much damage is done in Sudan than the damage done in Ethiopia. According to some report, more than 300,000 people died in this conflict. More displaced, million, and thousands and thousands internally displaced. Properties, public and private properties destroyed. So, with such a magnitude, still the prime minister is there. He don't feel nothing. He want to continue the power. He want to enjoy his relationship with President Isaias Afwerki, an evil man, a destroyer. He's a dictator. He want to make Ethiopia like that. He advised him to use force for everything to silence any criticism from journalists or from other ordinary citizens. That's the situation. So I'm just, call upon him repeatedly to resign, like Haile Mariam Desalegn or Abdullah Hamdok. Tried, people protesting, people dying, not too many like Ethiopia, but he say, okay, you don't want me to stay here, and you don't listen to me, I give up, and you deal with it. So I appreciate him. I encourage him, even though Sudanese need leadership, but if they don't listen to each other, if they don't want to settle this issue, if it doesn't work for Hamdok, why stay there? So Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, please, for the sake of the nation, for the sake of the ordinary people, you are causing them to suffer, bombarding them with money stolen from the public and purchasing them instead of investing in that country. Please consider leaving the position and facilitate for the transitional smooth transfer of power. smooth dialogue, reconciliation among Ethiopians. Okay, the Middle East are in trouble again, Israel and the Palestinians. Israel escalates threats against Palestinian resistance in Gaza. Israel occupation authorities have escalated its threats against the Palestinian resistance after rockets were fired from the occupied, besieged Gaza Strip, Israel media reported. At the start of the weekly meeting of his cabinet, Israel Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said, I want to clarify something here. All the stories of Hamas, lightning and thunder, which are repeated winter after winter, are no longer relevant. This came from following a series of Israeli army strikes in the besieged enclave, allegedly in response to 2 rockets fired from Gaza that landed in the sea off the coasts of Tel Aviv. Whoever directs missiles at the state of Israel is responsible, Bennett said. Meanwhile, Hamas said in a statement issued following the Israeli strike in Gaza that it is striking to its right to resist the occupation, defend the Palestinians, protect their holy sites, and protect their rights. In light of the Israeli threat to launch an offensive on Gaza and the Palestinian resistance pledged to not remain silent to any Israeli attack, Egypt is carrying out intensive mediation in order to keep the ceasefire between the Israeli occupation and the Palestinian alive. It is worth noting that a former Israeli minister called for the assassination of top Hamas leaders in response to rocket fire from the Gaza Strip. It is time to send Ismail Haniyeh and Yahya Sinwar to meet former Hamas leaders Abdul Aziz Arantzi and Hamas founder Ahmed Yassin. Former Communication Minister Ayub Qara told the Israeli Channel 14. Israel assassinated Al-Rantisi and Yassin in 2004. Qara, who is a member of the right-wing Likud party, said if Israel did not respond to the rocket fire by Hamas, it will be a fatal blow to Israeli deterrence capability. This will encourage Hamas and other groups in Gaza to continue firing at Israeli citizens, Qara said. Credit Middle East Monitor. So this is a volatile area, very dangerous place. And, you know, the United States, the European Unions, they should do their, they should end their silence and control especially Israelis, the powerful one. They are the one not listening to anybody. With a small incidents, they will come up with heavy bombardment of civilian structure and the civilians. So they should be controlled. The international community should implement the two-state solution sooner than later. I repeated this thing. They should, establish the two states, Palestinian, the Israelis. Then, the Palestinians and the Israelis and the Palestinians can live in peace, side by side, with respect and dignity. Unless that happens, Palestinians will continue to die and continue to lose their territorial border, and the bombardment will continue, the bloodshed will continue. So that's the reading part, and let's share some videos and end today's presentation. Thank you again. Okay, there we go now.
Thrive makes it simple for us to communicate with our customers. You know, you can use it on the go. You can send invoices, quotes.
2 weeks after the...
Okay, let's see. Okay, the first one is about Abdullah Hamdok resignation. There we go. Here we go.
News of his intention to resign emerged, and amidst a deadlock between Sudan's political parties, Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok announced he was stepping down from his position.
Despite my efforts to achieve the necessary consensus to be able to deliver to our people the promise of peace, justice, and no bloodshed, that did not happen. During the past few days, I met with all the civilian and military officials of the Transitional Council to explain and put the patriotic and historic responsibility in front of them. Following what I stated, I have decided to return to you what you entrusted me with, and I announce my resignation from the post of Prime Minister.
Abdullah Hamdok emerged as leader in 2019 after the overthrow of Sudan's authoritarian President Omar al-Bashir. The country's main civilian coalition, the Forces of Freedom and Change, saw Hamdok as the man to help Sudan transition from dictatorship to democracy. He had previously worked in the Ministry of Finance before taking up top jobs in the African Development Fund and serving as the Deputy Commissioner of the UN Economic Commission for Africa. As Prime Minister, Hamdok oversaw a severe financial crisis, during which inflation soared beyond 400%, but he still managed to end the civil conflict in various parts of the country with the Juba Peace Agreement of October 2020. He also successfully lobbied the US and the World Bank to remove Sudan from the list of sponsors of terrorism and convince global financial institutions to provide debt relief and economic aid. But in October this year, the military, led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, staged a takeover, placing Prime Minister Hamdok under house arrest and putting members of his cabinet in prison. A month later, Hamdok was released and reinstated after international condemnation of the coup. He then signed a deal to form a government of technocrats, sidelining political groups, but many Sudanese felt he had betrayed the revolution.
His removal, as far as they're concerned, removes the last fig leaf that was covering this regime, and what remains is a full-fledged military dictatorship. So I think the international community will now will likely increase its pressure on the military regime with the hope of heeding the demands of the Sudanese streets and installing a full civilian rule.
Demonstrations against the military and the deal Hamdok signed with them have led to the killings of dozens of protesters by police and security forces. Hamdok has been unable to stop the violence or install a government that would remove military interference. And now it seems he is left with no choice but to concede defeat and resign. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
History is filled with almost.
Okay, one more video.
With those who almost adventured, who almost achieved.
So this is about new weapon Russia testing.
Following an announcement by the Russian Defense Ministry on November 9th that a new air defense system, the S-550, was under development, new details regarding the weapon system have been announced. Speaking to the Raya Novosti news agency, Sources in the defense industry stated that the S-550 would become the world's first mobile special operation missile defense system, capable of effectively destroying intercontinental range ballistic missiles, and would be a more specialized derivative of the S-500 Prometheus. The S-550's capabilities to intercept warheads of enemy ballistic missiles, mainly intercontinental ones, as well as space attack weapons, will be by an order greater than the capabilities of the S-400 and the S-500, as well as those of the U.S. THAAD and Aegis air defenses fitted with the 3M, 3-block IIB missiles. One source was quoted as stating. Another added, the development of a new system is currently at an advanced stage. The first images of launchers associated with the S-500 were released in July, and missiles for the system entered production the following month. Advanced features, including its very high degree of situational awareness, its 600 km engagement range, its ability to intercept hypersonic and space targets, including satellites and ICBMs, and its ability to network with older air defense systems such as S-400s to maximize situational awareness. The much larger missiles carried by the S-500 compared to the S-400 mean that each launcher only carries 2 missiles rather than 4. The S-550 is expected to use the same missile launcher configuration. Development of the S-550 air defense system, which state media outlets implied could be related to the S-500 as pictures of the older system were published with the announcement. The statement indicated that during meetings in Sochi from 1-3 November, Russian President Vladimir Putin made a special emphasis on the importance of the advanced development of domestic air defense missile defense systems and deliveries of the S-350, S-500, S-550 to the armed forces. Further details about the new system were not given. The first pictures of the S-500 were unveiled in July following a test launch at the Kapistan Yar test range targeting a mock ballistic missile, and the long-delayed missile system is expected to enter service before January 2022. Serial production of the system began in August, and the S-500 will be capable of engaging both high-value aircraft, such as heavy bombers and AEW jets, as well as intercontinental range ballistic missiles and satellites. The only air defense system with a similar designation to the S-500 is the new medium-ranged S-350, which was designed to protect long-range missile batteries such as the S-400 as part of a wider network. Although long-range systems such as the S-500 and S-400 are highly versatile, they remain vulnerable to suppression if not properly protected by complementary shorter-range systems, including medium-range and point defense platforms. Although the S-550 being a next-generation successor to the S-350 remains possible, it may also be a planned replacement for the S-400, which has been in service since 2007 at the latest, and according to some reports as early as 2005, and which may be coming near the end of its production run. The designation S-550 could potentially refer to an export variant of the S-500 or an export-oriented design based on many of the same technologies, if not for the fact that President Putin stressed deliveries of the system to Russia's own armed forces. The fact that the S-350, S-500, S-550 were highlighted together indicates that of the above-mentioned possibilities, the S-550 is most likely to be a replacement for the S-400, which was the most major system not mentioned. Other possibilities are numerous, including a more specialized version of the S-500 intended for a specific role such as anti-satellite warfare.
Okay, that's the end. So that's about the new generation of Russian S-550. So they are advancing. It was S-400 was the latest, which Turkey bought from Russia to defend itself. And, so now they advanced into S-550. So it's keep going. It's the advancement is never stop. We have now hypersonic technology. Even Russia, China, the United States, I think, and even North Korea, they just try to advance the hypersonic, where is the fastest nuclear rocket technology. So the world is still moving to gain advantage against each other, and especially Putin, he need it because he want to stay there forever. He will not give up the power. No election. If there is election, he is to win again and again. So he needs something to protect himself. Okay. So it's the Sudanese people. I always encourage, by defending their rights, by coming out, protesting against the military coup, demanding their human rights, freedom, justice. As I said before, Ethiopians are missing, yeah, or especially the Oromos. The Oromos are the largest ethnicity in that country. For some reason, they are silent under Abiy Ahmed. I don't know what they got. They got nothing except death and the destruction, except bombardment, except the burning of their houses, even by Fano and Amara militia, by the expansionist agenda. So they are silent, except OLA. OLA is doing his part, but the general public, those who are living in back home, they are silent. So we want them to come out and defend their freedom, say against injustice, demand their own representation, instead of just being killed every day by aerial bombardment, drones, and by Abiy Ahmed, undercover operatives, by Fano and Amara militia expansionists into Wallega, and the atrocities in Wallo. So what they waiting for? They should come out, demand justice for Oromos suffering under Prosperity Party. They have to fight like Sudanese. They have to get out and fight like Sudanese. The diaspora community, they are doing their best, but what is missing? The domestic one. The most important one is the domestic one. So they have to defend their freedom, justice, equality, freedom to live on their own land, to stop this expansionist Fano and Amara militia, who are armed heavily by Abiy Ahmed, and by those in a federal government. So that's all I'm gonna say for today, and I repeat my call on Abiy Ahmed to set aside himself, facilitate for peaceful transition in that country. That position mismanaged, and your relationship, your marriage with Eritrean government is not helping Ethiopians. It's a bad one for that country. We need justice, equality, democracy, freedom of political organization, uh, engagement, free press in Ethiopia. We don't want something like Eritrean style. So that's all I'm gonna say today. I will be back with other news and update. Thank you. And please share, like my video, and subscribe to it so we can share the news and updates about Ethiopia and other nations. Thank you. Happy New Year again.